I am back to answer you all's questions. This is a special type of video where I let you all pick what I am going to talk about. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone who sent in questions. I love every single one and appreciate them. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get to all of them, but I feel like I get to a lot of them you all sent in, so thank you. And of course, unlike my other instructional or historical videos, this is just me talking about some of my thoughts and insights and sharing some of my personal experiences. To avoid things getting too spicy, just be aware that I am not representing anyone or any organization. I am just representing myself, and these are my beliefs only. So last time on my Q&A part 2, I answered 21 questions. This time I'm answering 18. Good number. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to have a little bit of a sip because we are starting off spicy. Let's just get right into it. So get into the controversy, if you will. This person said, as someone who is an outsider, I've heard someone describe Thelema to have a following of, as they describe, quote, lots of elitist and a far-right element. So, first of all, thank you for feeling like you can share that with me. I really appreciate it. This obviously is a little bit of a surprise to me, but as you can imagine, I am not in every single online space or in-person space, so I hope everyone's aware that especially in today's algorithm-driven online spaces, you start these sort of feedback loops, and you get caught in this pattern of not seeing things outside of this like tunnel you have dug into. People talk about this like alt-right pipeline, but there's really just like a incestuous snake pit of really any given belief or worldview. I'm personally trying to get in the snake pit of bird watching because I want more cute birds in my life. That issue aside, anyway. So in my experience personally, there is some diversity of political beliefs within Thelema. I think that's a good sign that if you're in a group, religious or otherwise, that allows space for a diversity of opinions and conversations, that's a green flag. So Thelema is one of these spaces where you will meet all kinds of people, some people you like, some people you don't like. That's life, right? There's space for people to be who they need to be and do their will. That being said, for people who are far, far right, it's really not super compatible with that particular belief system because of a lot of reasons, but I'll just put one example on your screen, which is this Liber OZ document. Well, that right there, it flies in direct opposition of sort of far-right stuff in general, because there's a declaration of dressing as thou wilt, loving as thou wilt. Thelema is naturally, from its very inception, of course it is, because the founder and prophet Aleister Crowley was very kinky, polyamorous, took multiple lovers, didn't use the word polyamory, queer, all of that. So there's hard baked into it acceptance of people with different gender expressions, different sexualities. Obviously people have cognitive dissonance about that and disagree with that. But again, if you were someone who didn't like core ideas in a particular belief system, you're probably going to go elsewhere, right? There's plenty of I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but there's plenty of evangelical spaces and Christian spaces that hate queer people. So, why would you try to be a Thelemite and hate queer people? So it doesn't make any sense. So in general, I would say Thelemites tend to have political beliefs that are accepting of that, and tend to be more forward-facing. Thelema is all about the Aeon of Horus and embracing our individuality in the Aeon of the Child and embracing our freedom to do our will. In terms of the elitist part of that assertion, again, I'm sorry some people have that experience, but I'm very blessed and lucky that the Thelemites I'm surrounded with, including the Thelemite I fell in love with, is not an elitist. They're actually quite down-to-earth, amazing people, but I think this speaks to the natural variation of humans in general. There are just humans that are super elitist about any and everything, and they're just unpleasant people to be around. So No, I don't. It's hard not to be insulted by stuff like this, because I've heard it a few times that somehow Thelemites are all mean or elitist, and I don't know. Not my experience. They can be. People can be. I mean, but, that's people, not... They're weird and elitist and mean because they're people. It's a function of them being humans, not a function of them being Thelemites. And I hope I make that clear. The same with whatever far-right pipeline you have founded yourself into. That is really nothing to do with Thelema. So I hope I've addressed that. I think I have. There's so much to get into, but let's move on to question number 2. What is the difference between the Thoth Tarot and the Rider-Waite-Smith deck? Okay, so the Thoth Tarot is very similar to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. You would read the cards the same, you'd shuffle the deck the same, blah, blah, blah. If you're familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, a lot of that's going to roll over into the Thoth deck. There are some key differences between like the correspondences and the astrology. And then, of course, if you want to get a whole lecture on this, check out my video on the Thoth Tarot. I give a whole little intro that'll be super helpful for you. But the idea is the Thoth Tarot is in alignment with the current Aeon, and it's a more forward-facing deck. So one of the key differences I love to point out is the fact that the Thoth Tarot looks super futuristic and sort of there's even a periodic table hidden in one of the cards, and a Mobius strip, so stuff like that. So it's pointing to the future and embracing scientific luminism, whereas the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is more past-facing. It's, reminiscent of a Ren fair and has that sort of classic design to the cards. So that's, off the top of my head, some quick differences. Very different energies in both, and I think it's awesome to kind of explore out and try the Thoth deck if you haven't already. And also, if you want a little quick primer, go check out my video on it. Question number 3. What's your favorite Crowley book, please? So that's super hard. I kind of want to cheat and just say the big blue brick behind me. But off the top of my head, I'm going to go with The Vision, the Voice. I think has been some of his amazing scrying, a really interesting thing. But anyway, if you're interested in a list of some of my favorite Crowley texts or texts you're interested in getting started, I actually put together a little list of that on Amazon to make it easy for you. But I also have my giant blog post list of Thelemic books, intro books. So I think between those, you can go check it out. It'll be down in the description of the video if you want to check out books. I want to make this as easy as possible for you. But yeah, I hope that helped. Okay, question 4. Ever consider trying the Abramelin? Yes, but I am more of a Liber Samekh kind of guy. So the Abramelin is an operation that you can use, and it's really a classical occult ritual to contact your holy guardian angel. The Crowley version of that is Liber Samekh, so if you're interested in that, go check it out. Okay, question number 5. Advice for my initial path. There's so much advice out there. I think there is some good advice from David Shoemaker from The Way of the Will, but this is about me, not David. But I would say if that path is ceremonial magic, then you should know that it is a marathon to study and walk this path, and it is not a sprint. So take care with your studies to not burn out, and take time to make sure you're taking care of yourself, you're nurturing yourself. Don't just explode into this in a pace that is unsustainable. It's really, you look out for yourself in the long haul. Stick with it. Study in ways that don't bristle against you personally being able to study. So, for example, if you're a more visual person, take time to use colors in your studies, paint pictures, draw symbols, incorporate art into it. Incorporate music into it, maybe singing or chanting. Don't feel like you have to be stuck to flashcards or just these texts or books. And also continue to do things that bring you joy. The work can be all-consuming, and if there is no joy in that work, then you will find it exponentially harder and possibly burn out. So I hope that's a helpful way to approach it. Question 6 was, what's your favorite way to pray? Thank you for asking. My favorite way to pray is with sincerity and vigor. So Crowley talks about inflame yourself with prayer. And I actually have another whole video all about Thelemic prayer. Go check it out, where I explore different ways to get into that. But I think, again, the best way to pray is with sincerity and force behind it, not, don't hesitate in your prayers, I should say. Question number 7. What is your favorite tarot card? Which one represents you? I don't think I have a favorite tarot card, but I do have a favorite deck. Surprise, surprise, it's the Thoth deck. That's my favorite. And then if I had to pick a card which represented me, I think I would go with the Magus card. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Magus card. Okay, question number 8. I have a lot of encounters with various entities. How can I work on making these contacts more fruitful? So I don't know the specific circumstances or details here, but I will give you some general thoughts and advice. I suggest going through a variety of different tests and testing with the entities to try to figure out more about them and try to narrow down what they are or who they are. Ask them questions and record the answers. You can record the answers by like an audio recording, like on your phone, or you can just take notes in a journal. And then you would cross-check those answers against a table of correspondences like 777. Obviously, 777 is not the only one out there. Use your favorite, but that's my go-to, and that's what I'm going to suggest off the top of my head. You can also, for testing, vibrate different god names and see how the entity responds to that. And once you know more about them, then you can figure out what to do and what would be the most useful course of action going forward with those particular entities. Question number 9. Any tips for scrying with magic mirrors or crystals? So I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on scrying, actually. But my general advice is not to neglect yourself in this equation. So there's a lot of thoughts about like, oh, have like the right equipment. Okay, cool. And I feel like the magical world has already covered all of those. So I'm just going to talk about the you part of the equation. So obviously go into the operation purified appropriately, whether that's fasting, banishing, a ritual bath. Do what you need to do that's appropriate. And then make sure your mind is in the proper place before you start scrying. And I recommend almost entering into a trance-like state. And that sort of state can be achieved a number of ways. My favorite ways are through meditation and chanting. I have also found the practice of yoga nidra to train the mind super helpful. That's been a recent interest and exploration of mine that has been very fruitful. So I hope that was helpful. So, question number 10. Would you recommend joining the OTO as a beginner? Sure, why not? That's the short answer. You don't have to be a super advanced person to join the OTO. But my more nuanced answer, which I hope is more valuable, is honestly, it depends on the person and if the culture of the local OTO group is a good fit for you and your personal goals. So this is more of a you as a person and less as your skill set. So you can be the most advanced person in the world and it still not be a good fit for you. But do consider it. So generally speaking, you are not required to study anything before showing up to OTO stuff. Obviously, your mileage may vary. Groups are across the world and even across the United States have very different cultures and are very different. Obviously having some basic familiarity with what's going on, knowing who Aleister Crowley was, knowing the Book of the Law, is going to be helpful for you, but, you can still show up to most things not knowing what's going on. So I do think the OTO in general can be very beneficial for beginners because it has the opportunity to provide support and community, especially for new people. But again, some local cultures are more accepting of new people than others. You may find some cold or mean or cliquish kind of stuff going on. That may happen, right? And so I would just encourage you to remember that's the local culture and not OTO in general. And so hopefully, if you have a bad experience, hopefully you can have a better one in the future. I hope for you. Okay. We are on question 11. What would be a good book for someone who doesn't practice to learn what Thelema is? So I'm going to recommend the Weiser Concise Guide to Aleister Crowley. I got it out. Oh, goodness. Here it is. So this is a great short read, and it really gets into the details of not only Crowley, but Thelema, as well as some fantastic information on Thelemic organization. So look at this. What a great small read. Gets right to the point, gives you a great primer. Question 12. What was the lasting influence of Giordano Bruno on the history of magic? So in 2000, Hymenaeus Beta HB, who is the OHO of the OTO, added Bruno to the list of saints in the EGC, which is Ecclesiastica Gnostica Catholica, which is the ecclesiastical arm of the OTO. So he's in there as a saint. And so for more information on Bruno, I recommend this book. I'll put it on the screen. It's also down in the description. So I hope that was helpful. Don't know what else more to say about that. So question 13. How did you know Thelema and OTO was your will? So let me just say that OTO and Thelema are two different things. Thelema is at the beating core of who I am. And the OTO as an organization is something I could take or leave. I personally love the OTO. I love OTO USA and International. Like, what a cool group it's to be a part of. But if OTO stopped existing, I would still be a Thelemite. I hope that makes sense. So I sought to understand my will, essentially by seeking knowledge and conversation with my holy guardian angel. I won't go too far into this, but that's a process that doesn't happen overnight. It took more than a year of dedicated hard work, and it's still an ongoing process. And I would say that self-knowledge in general is a lifelong pursuit that I hope everyone and myself continues to pursue the rest of my life. So participation in the OTO happens to be in alignment with my will, because it helps me to do my will. But if the OTO were to ever impede me from doing my will, which is unlikely, then I would leave the organization. But right now it doesn't. So it's a wonderful organization to be a part of, but it's, might not be for everyone, and that's okay. Okay, question 14. Always nice to see a new video. Thank you. Here's my question. How often do you read the other Class A texts besides Liber OZ, which is the Book of the Law, and how much do they inform your Thelemic beliefs? Well, let's just start with that second part of the question. They inform my beliefs a lot. I find the other Class A and Class A and B, and even Class C texts incredibly informative and valuable, and reflective of the world and the spiritual landscape out there. I mean, even if I don't necessarily 100% buy hook, line, and sinker into everything, they give me a canvas and an invitation to know and to explore and to do. And that's what I think the holy texts really do, is they're invitations to knowledge and attainment that I think is really interesting and valuable. In terms of the time frame by which I return to the texts, not enough. More. I wish I had time to return to them a lot. But I would say now I read through them in sort of their corresponding times throughout the holy days of the year. So in the Book of the Law, it outlines these holy days of Thelema, which are the solstices, the equinoxes, the 3 days of the writing of the Book of the Law, and the first night of the prophet and his bride. So those are beautiful times to return back to the corresponding text. Obviously, a lot of people read the corresponding chapters of the Book of the Law on the 3 days of the writing of the Book of the Law, but certainly you can plug in other holy texts and explore them throughout the year. And I just think that these holy days are great invitations to think about things and return back to that spiritual center. And the holy texts, bring them in. Why not? But also, I would say make time to enjoy the feasts and enjoy all of existence as you go through the world. So I know that some people have lists of the holy texts they like to read through different times of the year, so I think Jim Eshelman has one, so you could probably find that on the College of Thelema website, but if you want my version, it's just simply coming right out of the Book of the Law, all of the holy days, and sort of adhering to that and exploring that. So Good question. Thank you. So question 15. This person is asking about the HGA or Holy Guardian Angel. Sorry if this question is asked a lot, but I'd like to know more. Okay, so there's this idea within Thelemic mysticism of the Holy Guardian Angel, and this idea is understood for some people to their Holy Guardian Angel as a part of their subconscious or mind. Some people understand to be something spiritually external to themselves that they align with. There's a whole bunch of different understandings of literally what the HGA is, and I'm not here to give you that answer. It's a sort of figure that out on your own and embrace what your personal truth is on this matter. But what is true about this is in the quest to do the great work, which is progressing on the Kabbalistic tree of life. So this is the Kabbalistic tree of life. This is the map of the mind of God, or the way of return. And we're down here in Malkuth, and the idea is to spiritually progress up here to Kether, to the divine source and the divine light. And as you're going through this progression, eventually you get to number 6, which is this point that is understood to be obtaining knowledge and conversation with your Holy Guardian Angel. And then once you have that, that'll serve you as you continue to progress upwards on the tree of life and on that particular path. The thing is, though, of course, this is not the only tree of life out there. There were other understandings and models. And of course, this idea of obtaining knowledge and conversation with your Holy Guardian Angel, or this idea of like a mystical marriage with your Holy Guardian Angel, it's not required to be a Thelemite. And there are certainly other ways of understanding this. So if this system appeals to you and you want to know more, do check it out. You might be interested in the organization known as the AA. There's a bunch of different lineages you can go check out. On my big list of resources, there's a whole bunch of AA lineages listed. I list some of the bigger ones. Obviously, I don't list all of them because I don't know what y'all's websites are, so please don't be offended. I did the best I could. But anyway, long story short, go check it out. If, again, this idea of the Holy Guardian Angel appeals to you, maybe this is something worth looking into and investigating. So, question 16. Do you find it easy to perform Resh in your mind? Yes, I do. I don't know if it's just like a me thing, but I previously remembered seeing like how different people picture apples in their mind. I'm on the extreme side where I could like picture an apple in my mind and all of the colors and the shading and the texture and the smell and the taste and the waxiness of the skin of the apple. I have a very vivid mind that makes doing these things easier, but like obviously if this is something you want to work on, go for it. Maybe I think like a lot of yoga practices might be appropriate for sharpening the mind and your connection to your body as well. So maybe you could, eventually get to this point of doing Resh and other rituals on the astral plane or in your mind. Question 17. Is there a hierarchy of practice, as in, should the mastery of some aspects be completed first? Oh boy, this is a can of worms question. I'm gonna take a sip. I feel like everyone is going to give you a different answer to this question, and I hope my answer has space for that. And that is to say, if you go through a formal system like the AA, or College of Thelema, or Temple of the Silver Star, like within an organization, and in some sense like OTO as well, but less so, then yes, there are required tasks expected of you, things for you to learn and to be able to do and perform. So there's a system there, and you got to master the steps before you get to the next one. Like you can't just like float on in and like float up. Although wouldn't that be fun? Time to take the oath of the abyss and cross and blow up your life like Jack Parsons. Okay, anyway, you're expected to like do the things, but in terms of people outside of organizations doing their own study and practice, I mean, just your mileage may vary. I mean, my general advice in the world, which I gave earlier on in this video, which is ceremonial magic is a marathon and not a sprint. So take it easy, practice self-care, practice taking care of yourself, your mind and your body, love yourself. Thelema is all about love and joy and finding space to honor yourself and love yourself. And embrace that. So that sounds like a fluffy answer, but I think it's really easy. It's really easy for things to get dark really fast. It's really easy to feel isolated and alone and not okay. So I think if you practice some self-compassion in your studies, whatever they may be, there's, I would say, a greater chance of you coming out okay on the other side. So in terms of like hierarchy of practice, I mean, again, a general advice aside from the one I just gave you, is learn banishing and cleansing and purification first before you move on to more advanced skill sets. There's obviously, I don't know, like some talismans are easy to make than others. For example, we talked about this in my Agrippa study group. Shout out to my friend Ren if he watches this. I don't know if he actually watches my videos, but I love him to death. He's an amazing human being. Anyway, so we always talked about how it's easier to make Lunar Mansion talismans than some of the other more advanced ones because in terms of elections, like Lunar Mansions happen a lot. So boom, that's going to be maybe easier than like one of these like talismans where the election is like once every 10 years. So I don't know, like do what speaks to you and take care of yourself. How about that? Okay, and so here's my last one, question 18. What have been the most rewarding and most challenging experiences on your journey? Wow, this is a really good question. Thank you. So the most rewarding thing for me has been the study and breakthroughs I have made on my own. I remember when I first started studying Crowley and Thelema with intensity and sincerity, I felt like I was hitting a bunch of brick walls. Because it's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then there's, I don't know, like almost like a lot of jargon involved in reading through this. And then you kind of get a sense of like how Crowley writes. And then finally the pieces come into place and you're like, oh shoot, this is all related and it's so beautiful. And to have that sort of breakthrough moment of not only researching, but also practicing, gorgeous, right? Like absolutely life-shattering, life-altering. I wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. My life is completely different now. And so the other part of this question is a negative one, which will probably get people riled up, but this is question 18. So most people will not have made it here, as always with my Q&As. So I like to leave some spicy stuff to the end for the true believers who stick with me. So the most challenging aspect of me being able to do my will is, of course, I would say other people. And the profound small-mindedness, the ignorance, cruelty, jealousy, and just the overall viciousness of other people. So I don't know, I'm still always surprised. Well, let me just say this. A lot of people assume I come from a nice background. I do not. I come from an extremely rough background. I grew up in very bad circumstances, and I've experienced the worst of humanity before I got to experience anything else in life. I was fortunate to be born with, I don't know, born given, who knows? I knew I had to get out of those circumstances, and I put myself through college, and I moved away, and like I have progressed past where I am originally from. But I would say my window of understanding human behavior and human, I don't know, variation of behavior beliefs and all of this is quite on the darker end of the spectrum. Woo, way off here. And it wasn't until I got to college that I actually learned how good people can be and beautiful. But I am still discovering new and interesting ways that people can be absolutely horrible to you. And one of the things that is just baffling to me that I still don't understand is jealousy. How I always do my best and I love being able to volunteer and give of myself to others and help other peoples along their path. And just kind of shine brightly in the world and spread that warmth and light. I think that's one of the beautiful things about being on this path is you get to that point where you've cultivated your own inner star enough that you're ready to share that light with the world. And the truth of the matter is some people are not ready to receive that light, and some people view you sharing or doing as a threat, and they're jealous of it, and they have a very dark internal world where they're just projecting stuff onto you. So I was going to do like a separate video responding to something Thorn Mooney actually made a video about, which is all about the witchcraft community. And I don't know if I'm going to make that video, but a part of that really spoke to me in her particular exploration of this was how when you are, I don't know, I guess I would say sharing yourself with the world, if you're like a writer, a YouTuber, giving talks or lectures in your local community, giving back in that way, people hold you to a higher standard. You are held on a pedestal in a way that no one else is. So people overanalyze every single little thing about you, your life, how you talk. People are so quick to be offended by everything. And so people who know me and don't know me get the sense that I'm a very mild-mannered, introverted, kind of shy away from conflict kind of person, which I am. That being said, like, if people are attacking me, I will attack back. I'm a Thelemite, not a Christian. I don't turn the other cheek. So I defend myself when I have to, but I like to not be in those spaces, and I also like to give back and love and, just make the world a more positive, beautiful space. So in general, I don't have a lot of, like, conflicts. I mean, the thing that people hate me for the most is the fact I'm a Thelemite, which that's not going to change. So, I mean, you can just, like, know I'm a Thelemite and then hate me off the bat, and that's kind of on you. But, like, I don't get a lot of, oh, Lynn was, like, a bad person or did this, because, like, I'm not doing things. I'm, like, giving a talk and then coming immediately home, getting in my pajamas, and having, like, some chocolate in my bed, okay? Like, that's, like, I just avoid people and things in the general community, so, despite this very high standard, I would say I meet it. The downside is, people, I have learned, still need reasons to hate you because their world is so dark. And in my case, people in my own community will straight up lie. They will just make stuff up and then spread that behind your back. And I'm in a very blessed position that a lot of people do love me and they see the work I'm doing and they know who I am. And so they're like, hey, so-and-so is saying this about you. And I find out eventually. But it's just really, it really hurts and is really heartbreaking that in my own community, that people need to be angry and hate me so much that they have to lie about me. So that has made it when people are actively lying and trying to make me give talks or, like, undermine anything I'm trying to do, that makes it 10 times harder for no reason. Yeah. It's that's been the most challenging part. I've just been so surprised at how horrible people are, and not just the surprise, but they've actively made my life harder, and that's really sad on them. And the way I've had to deal with that is to protect myself and my privacy and my mental health and my ability to be able to continue to create and do is just remove myself. So for however much I was a hermit before, I am 10 times a hermit now. So it's much harder for people to lie about me when they don't interact with me at all and don't see me ever. So my world, because I have chosen to be a writer and do YouTube, has gotten infinitely smaller. I'm very lonely and sad and isolated. Hopefully one day I won't be, but that's kind of where I am now. And fortunately for me, I do love books and I love gardening and I love food. Yeah, I feel like the in-person community, just a few people in it, I should say, are incredibly hostile. So don't mean to dwell on that. Question 18. But it has been an absolute pleasure to discuss all of these questions with you all. Thank you so much, everyone, for your continued support and sending me questions to answer and talk about and share some of my lived experience with you all. So, as always, if you want to check me out and find out where I will be giving talks and workshops this summer, go check out my social media, my Patreon, all that info is there. And as always, I hope you have a beautiful journey in life wherever it takes you. And I am the center of expression for the primal will to good, and so are you. Thanks, everyone.